And I know we want to say, oh, but Desmond Ridder can't support Bijan and Pitts and London. First of all, Desmond Ridder doesn't have to support Bijan. That man supports himself, okay? He is a single parent. He don't need nobody, all right? But Desmond Ridder and the passing attack for the Falcons absolutely can support Kyle Pitts and Drake London, okay? If we're talking about the difference that I mentioned there, it was 6 attempts per game. Kyle Pitts, 6.3 targets per game over his career. So we're literally talking about the difference from Mariota to Ridder being the number of targets that Pitts has averaged throughout his career. Breakout players are the guys that can win you your leagues. And well, we have a really special guest here with us today. We're talking to Jordan Vanek from the 33rd team. And Jordan, you've been working on all kinds of great stuff over at the 33rd team. I mean, you do everything from like film analysis to DFS to all kinds of fun numbers that I don't know what half of them mean. So first of all, welcome to the show, man. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you're working on?
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys having me here. I just released my 5 early wide receiver flag plans article where I just broke down 5 of the receivers, one of which we'll be talking about shortly. And later this week, I got my 5 late round wide receiver flag plans, which might feature Adam Thielen for those needing that sneak peek.
And you brought us right back down.
Over here. We call them football guys here. That's how we refer to our flag
No, we
plans.
don't. No, we don't. Please stop circulating that through the company. I hate it so much. All right, let's get into Jordan's number 1 breakout that he has for the 2023 season. Jordan, take it away.
It's Chris Olave. Chris Olave has been a guy that ever since March, early April, I've pulled the data, and the data has pointed to him being one of the guys that I think can be a sleeper top 5 wide receiver for this upcoming season. As a rookie, he averaged 3.0 yards per route run against single high coverage. The only other rookies in the last 6 years to do that are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. As a rookie, he also had over a 20% target share against 2 high coverage, which is 2 safeties deep, over a 25% target share against single high, where it's 1 safety back there. The only receivers to do that in 2022 were A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Tyreek Hill. They upgraded that quarterback position with Derek Carr, and for the first time in Derek Carr's career last season, we saw him hyper-target 1 receiver. I think Olave is going to be that guy. We know Derek Carr can throw it down the field. We know Olave got the ball down the field. It's not going to give you much yak, which a lot of people love from some of their guys, but he's going to get open 15 yards down the field. Olave has been my guy since that early March era, and I've just been drafting him in all of my best ball leagues.
Yeah, Chris Olave is a big favorite of mine. Dave, I feel like you're kind of warming up on Olave, haven't you? Like you've been kind of like up and down, hot and cold with him.
So I love Olave, the football player, love Olave, the talent. And what I've been saying is I think that people faded Chris Olave last year because he had all the red flags of being a late declare and all that. And now I'm worried that people are overcorrecting a little bit. It's like, well, I missed on Olave last year. I'm definitely not going to miss on him this year. I think that putting him ahead of guys like Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, I think we're maybe getting a little bit carried away. I see, like, don't get me wrong. I love Chris Olave. Everything Jordan said is completely true. But Michael Thomas is healthy.
Oh,
I mean, he's been in camp. He's going to be playing week 1, it sounds like. And Michael Thomas, when he was there last year, was still the target hog. So I don't want to say that he's even going to be playing wide receiver 2, like that Olave is going to be the wide receiver 2 behind Michael Thomas. But if Michael Thomas is there and he's drawing his, mega target share and doing what he does, how is Chris Olave going ahead of Devonta Smith and T. Higgins? That's the problem I have, is that if we're looking at perceived 1A and 1B situations, I'd rather invest in what I know is going to be a better offense, which the Eagles and the Bengals are probably going to be better than the Saints. So I like Olave a lot. I just have him at wide receiver 15, as opposed to where most people have him in like the 10 to 12 range.
So I know what you're saying about Michael Thomas, and I don't want to just totally dismiss a guy because of injury. But I think there's also a very real part of this for Michael Thomas, that he's just not the same dude that he ever was before. And there's a lot of mixed reviews coming out of camp. Some days like, oh, he looks good. He looks back to being healthy. And there's other days where it's like, he can't get off the line when he's getting jammed by a safety. Like, it's bad. So, I get it, Dave. I do think that we have to keep Michael Thomas in consideration there. But Jordan, I am 100% on your side with this Chris Olave. Anything else you want to add there on your breakout, Olave?
I think the way that I look at Michael Thomas for this season is kind of similar to the way Adam Thielen played in Justin Jefferson's rookie season. I think Michael Thomas can have more touchdowns than Chris Olave, which might prevent him from being a top 5 player. But I think the targets and yards that are going to be going Olave's way is kind of what separates them. And Michael Thomas, yeah, he isn't who he used to be. And I think the player he is now is more suited to like winning when they need it. Like that 3rd and 2, you need him to beat a number 2 corner. Olave is getting doubled or bracketed. That's kind of the situation that I see him playing. But, we'll see. I mean, the Saints, I think, have one of the easier schedules in secondary. And then they have so many dome games. I think they go 10 straight games in a dome this year.
Yeah, I think that if you are targeting offensive pieces, it's that division right there where everything is really up for grabs and the defenses aren't very good. You're talking about Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sorry, I know I hurt your feelings there with the Carolina Panthers, Jordan. My bad. And then the Saints themselves, like their defense has been good in the past, but it's really not all that great. So this is a team that's still going to have to throw. And with Alvin Kamara out for a couple weeks, they're going to be looking for any type of offensive explosion. And I do really believe that Chris Olave could be that guy. Might be talking about him again in the future.
Alvin Kamara when you got Kendre Miller, though. I mean, we saw him yesterday.
Oh, the hype train is going.
Baby, let's go.
He caught a wheel route.
I love what Jordan just brought us about. Yeah, he caught a wheel route, guys.
That's important. That's
and
what
he took an untouched, touchdown into the end zone. It's beautiful.
Perfect.
It's exactly what we want to see.
All right, we're going to be talking about a few more breakouts here, but before we do, if you're enjoying this conversation, please be sure to like this video, comment below with whether you agree with our breakouts or not, or if you have a breakout of your own. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we're going to continue to bring you 2 episodes per week here during the preseason. And then once the regular season rolls around, we're giving you 4 episodes a week and a Sunday live start sit every single week to get you ready for your fantasy game day. And if you haven't done this already, head on over to footballguys.com. Check out our custom rankings. It's draft time. You need to be prepared for your fantasy football drafts. You want to have a leg up on the rest of your competition. Head on over and check out our custom fantasy rankings that you can tailor it exactly to the scoring and the format of your league. There's these awesome upside and downside meters that we've added. You're going to see consensus ADP from a bunch of websites. And then also, what you're going to see there is the fact that you can edit and pick and choose which fantasy analysts you want to get the rankings from. So you can immediately go to Football Guys, remove Dave from the rankings, and they're going to get that much better when you go and click on that. So you can click the link in the description and get started today. Dave, let's talk about your number 1 breakout for next season. And it's a guy that we've talked about before. I'm curious to see how you expand on this player.
Well, first of all, you just talked about the upside and downside rankings. And if you go to Football Guys rankings page, this guy, his upside meter has more green in it than any other tight end. And now that I've just dismissed Jordan's breakout for being in a bad offense, let me go ahead and talk about Kyle Pitts a little bit here.
That seems fair.
Yeah, of course. Talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but there is a lot of inherent risk with drafting Kyle Pitts, and I'm not going to completely dismiss that, but there also is a ton of upside. And if somebody's going to break out into that elite tier of tight ends, I think Kyle Pitts has the room to do it. I mean, last year, he was number 1 in air yard share. He was number 1 in yards per target. He was number 2 in target share. He was number 3 in targets per route run. He was number 5 in yards per route run. And obviously the issue here is that the team doesn't pass much, and Desmond Ridder hasn't looked great so far in the preseason, but Kyle Pitts is the same guy that we fell in love with when he came into the league, as a 20-year-old prospect, size-adjusted speed score in the 99th percentile, 6'6", 245 pounds, elite college production, all that. And he's still just 22 years old. So his profile is this elite mix of size, speed, draft capital, college production, and the usage and efficiency rates that he's displayed so far in the NFL are elite. So I think he's just a ticking time bomb. We're just waiting for things to finally fall into place.
Like a good bomb or a bad bomb?
A good bomb, hopefully.
Okay.
But of course, like I said, I'm
don't
not
scare
dismissing
people
the
like
downside here either. And I mean, it's just crazy when you look last year. His target share, target rate, yards per route run, air yard share, air yards per target, all of that went up. And his fantasy production went down. He even improved his touchdown rate and his fantasy production went down. So I am betting on the talent. I'm betting on the profile. I'm betting on the efficiency metrics. And sure, I could have egg on my face for the 3rd year in a row. But Kyle Pitts, one of these days, please break out. And hopefully it's this year.
I think we've started to develop a trend here of just the players that we are willing to be wrong on over and over and over. It's like, how many times are we going to step on the rake and do the Looney Tunes thing? Kyle Pitts seems like that's your guy, but it's like it's not a bad bet when you're betting on a player that just has incredible athleticism and has the profile that can break out like this. Jordan, we talk about this Falcons offense being one that, kind of worried about because of Desmond Ridder, because of Arthur Smith, and now because of the addition of Bijan Robinson. Is this an offense where you can see these pass catchers actually be successful and break out in a big way?
So for me, the biggest concern I have for Kyle Pitts is the fact that Ritter came in with Drake London. So they got the rookie OTA together. And
Yeah.
then obviously we knew Mariota was a starter. So obviously Ritter's working with the twos, whatnot. But when Ritter stepped in, Drake London was there. So we saw Desmond Ritter hyper target Drake London because that was the only guy on the field that was worth to be targeted. And then during the preseason, like you see that London is the one that's running routes. He's the one that's getting these contested targets. My biggest concern for Kyle Pitts is just the fact that the chemistry with Ritter will be stronger with London just because, frankly, they've worked more together throughout these past 2 seasons. As far as the Falcons offense, I think this is the year that Arthur Smith establishes that Tennessee's team, and it's going to be ugly, but they're going to be top probably 10 in scoring. Like, the Falcons weren't that bad in scoring. When you look at some of the games, they dominated the 49ers last year. Like, they had games where Tyler Algier was running for 100 yards. They had a running back that they just cut, ran for a few hundred yards. Now they have Bijan Robinson back there. Teams are going to have to play single high coverage. And when Bijan gets going, the whole offense is just going to, by default, have to be able to put up some points. And then in the red zone, at the tight end position, you have Kyle Pitts getting those touchdown babies from that red zone stuff. And for that, that's where you're getting your fantasy points. Tight end is one position I'm willing to just take the upside on. But when I draft Kyle Pitts, I'm definitely targeting a guy like Juwan Johnson late, or even some of the other guys in that range, because I don't normally roster 2 tight ends. But with Kyle Pitts, I just don't want to be burned completely.
And I'll even take like the super vanilla approach. You're talking about Juwan Johnson, who is another upside guy. If
Yep.
I take Kyle Pitts, I'll take a Cole Kmet or a Tyler Higbee or a Hunter Henry, a guy that doesn't have any upside, but he has a relatively safe floor. Just so if Kyle Pitts does faceplant again, at least you've got something to fall back on there.
Yeah, and I think, Jordan, you touched on something that's pretty important here. I think that so many in the fantasy community have put it in their heads that the Falcons were just a really bad team last year. And I get it. They didn't win a whole lot of games, but they really weren't a bad team. And I mean, they won enough to stay competitive. And I think what happens is that we see that Kyle Pitts didn't get the production we wanted, and Drake London didn't get the production we wanted. And it becomes really easy to start to say, oh, Arthur Smith is such a bad coach. And it's like, not really. They were pretty competitive, and that offense was moving the ball. And I do think you're right. I do think that we're going to start to see more and more of this Tennessee Titans offense that he used to have show up here and get his thumbprint on that offense there in Atlanta. And who knows? Maybe I have another Atlanta Falcons breakout player that we're talking about a little bit later. We'll see. We'll see. Spicy tease for you. But I'm going to get to my first breakout here. And my breakout player is a wide receiver, and he plays up north, and he plays for the Green Bay Packers. It is Christian Watson. He's my wide receiver 21. Jordan's clutching his pearls right now. I don't know if it's good or bad, but we'll find out. Stay tuned. He's my wide receiver 21 right now in the Football Guys rankings, and the rest of the staff has him at wide receiver 26. So a little bit of a change, of a difference there. And ADP, he's going as the wide receiver 24. This is a guy that you're able to draft in the middle of the 5th round. That's where I recently got him in one of my home league drafts. And by the way, if you're not drafting local, go and do that. #draft local. All right. Football Guys loves doing that. But I think what we've seen with Christian Watson is we've already seen the potential as a rookie. Like, we've seen the stuff that you say normally would imply a breakout. Like, if you're talking about a guy that's breaking out, you're talking about a guy who maybe was the wide receiver 9 in fantasy from weeks 10 to 17, a guy who had a 22% target share, a guy who now has 250 plus vacated targets in the team. Maybe someone with like a little bit of potential with like incredible athletic metrics, top 15 in targets per route run, top 15 in yards per target, top 12 in yards per route run. Like, there's just I'm statting you to death right here, but it's to prove the point that Christian Watson's kind of already sort of broken out I think a more, I don't want to call it smaller way, but I think in a more indirect way, he got to break out for a little bit. And I think that so many people are focusing on the touchdowns, and that's what really buoyed his fantasy production. But I think you have to look at those peripheral metrics in the background and take a look at what he was doing as a receiver in general. You don't start sending guys on longer routes and getting him target on longer routes if he's not a good receiver that can't get open. And that's what he's been able to do, is create separation. Here's a little fun fact for you guys. 7 rookies to ever reach 2.25 yards per route run: Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, good job, Jordan, and Christian Watson. So it's a really good group to be a part of, guys that make explosive plays. And I think I've mentioned this before on one of our shows, is that our own Adam Harstead here at Football Guys, he compared the rookie season for Christian Watson and said the closest statistical rookie seasons to Christian Watson belong to Stephon Diggs, Percy Harvin, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, and Michael Thomas. So I know I'm dropping a ton of names here of just like a ton of guys, but I think what it's doing is it's proving the case that statistically there's so much more to Christian Watson than just the touchdowns. And I think that right now what we have is a little bit of a discount of the unknown, of not knowing what's going to happen with the Green Bay Packers offense. So I think that if this was a guy who we were looking at with Aaron Rodgers again this season, I think Christian Watson might be going a full round ahead of where he is right now. And the Jordan Love discount is making it really nice for him.
And Jordan Love has looked kind of good in the preseason. Just, I mean, we
yeah.
talked about investing in this Packers offense on episode 2 of this show. If you want to go way back to when we first started it, we said they were one of our favorite offenses to target because of the unknown. You know, the scare of what Jordan Love could look like has kind of suppressed everybody in value. I'm in lockstep with you, Alfredo. I just checked, and Christian Watson is my wide receiver 22. The only reason he's not my wide receiver 21 is because of my undying love for Tyler Lockett, where I'm like 30 spots above consensus on Tyler Lockett. But I love Christian Watson, and the upside is there. I mean, when you chase these small sample size from rookie years, you could end up with this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown, could also be this year's Elijah Moore, but I think that it is worth chasing when you see those small samples of elite production from rookies.
Jordan, I want to ask you something here real quick, because both of us have now mentioned the name Jordan Love and how much uncertainty surrounds that Packers offense. What have you seen? Because I mean, I think that you look at the game in a different angle than most of the numbers and analytics people, just by using that. But you really understand football when you're watching the film, when you're watching the game. So, what have you seen from Jordan Love in this Packers offense that either makes you really optimistic or really scared of them in 2023?
I'm pretty optimistic because Jordan Love looks comfortable. Like, you watch Trey Lance and you watch the sporadicness of him in his third year of that scheme and, you know, coming back from injuries and different things. I understand his situation, but he doesn't look comfortable. He has made some throws. He's done some things nice on that side of the ball. But for Jordan Love, he looks like he's in command of the offense. He knows that this is his team. This is his locker room. These are the guys that he needs to get going. It's going to be the first year for Matt LaFleur to kind of separate himself from just a guy that had Aaron Rodgers, which, granted, you need good players to do good things. So that's just kind of the way it works. But for him, he's in a spot where he can showcase what he is as an offensive designer, play caller, and certain things like that. And Christian Watson's the way to unlock it. The only concern I have for Watson is his big blow up moments came up against bad cornerback play. The Dallas Cowboys had, I think, 3 corners hurt in that game. They're down to undrafted UDFAs, and they were covering him, and he was just running by him, which, granted, that's good. That's good that he can run by.
Yeah, you should be able to do that. Right.
But it's just going to be concerning when he goes up against some of the top tier corners that can, you know, press him off the line of scrimmage, can throw him off his routes and certain things like that. But when he's in a good matchup like his division, where cornerback play isn't exactly that strong in the North, especially with like the Vikings, where you're going to the Flores scheme, blitz in the house, I think we're going to see a lot of boom games from Watson, and then a lot of games where it's like he gets 3 catches for 22 yards.
Yeah, he's not going to be a 10 target per game guy. Yep. He's going to be the holy crap, Christian Watson ripped off 2 80-yard touchdowns in a single game type of guy. Like, that's the upside that he has. He's got that I could score from anywhere on the field anytime the ball's in my hand upside.
Yep.
Now, before we move on here, I want to let you guys know this is the last week to enter for a chance to be in the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show Listener League. All you have to do is leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and send that screenshot over to Kluge at Football Guys. That's Kluge, like my co-host here. Send that over to him. And once again, you know, not saying it has to be 5-star review, but I'm just saying a 1-star review probably doesn't get you in. Also say nice things about me. And actually, if you say bad things about Dave, you're a lock to get in. So yeah, do that for us. By the way, before we keep going here, I want to talk about one of our absolute favorite fantasy sports apps, and that is the Sleeper app. Sleeper is combining fantasy sports and real money and putting that all into one gaming app that's focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. Sleeper's become the fastest organically growing fantasy platform in the world with over 5 million active users. Dave and I actually have, I think, all of our leagues on Sleeper right now. That is not like an advertisement. That is not a script that we are reading. That is real talk right here. And the cool thing that they have now introduced is called Sleeper Picks. It's real money put into this product that connects friends over picks. You're going to choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats. Only on Sleeper can you get up to 100x payouts. 100 times, Dave. It's a lot of money. If you put down $5, how many dollars is that later, David? Do the math. 5 times 100. You're not doing well.
500, yes.
You're not doing well. So you can share this with your friends, get rewarded together, and just honestly start having fun with your fantasy football. That's what it's meant to be. So head on over to sleeper.com/promo/FBG. We'll have the link in the description here for you. Now we got 3 more breakouts that can help you win your fantasy football season. Jordan, I'm going to toss it over to you. This time you're talking about a quarterback.
Geno Smith. I know Dave just mentioned that he loves Tyler Lockett. I love JSN. I think all 3 of us like the way that DK Metcalf plays football. This receiving core for the Seattle Seahawks might be the best in the NFL from a trio perspective. I think they're arguably in the same tier as the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, which is probably going to be the one of the biggest comparisons. The Justin Jefferson, I guess, KJ Osborne, and Jordan Addison grouping. I think that this group is going to do a lot of things that people haven't seen from Seattle in recent years, because when Shane Waldron came over, he wanted to bring in the McVay scheme. He's a guy that came from the Rams. He wanted to run 3 wide receiver sets. They tried by getting D. Eskridge and some of these other guys, but it hasn't exactly worked out. So they went to 12 personnel last season, which is 2 tight ends on the field with Noah Fant and Will Dissly. But this year, with JSN, they can unlock a whole new way that they are going to run their offense. And in particular, it's going to allow them to beat a lot of these zone coverages. When I looked at JSN through his collegiate profile, the one thing that stood out to me is his intellectual ability to understand where to be against certain coverages. He's running routes and taking his routes deeper, shorter, certain ways to get away from where that guy is in the zone scheme. And that's going to allow Geno Smith an outlet to beat the 49ers, who run a lot of zone coverages. He's going to get to the spots where when the 49ers go to 3 safeties where Huafunga's in the box, when JSN gets matched up against him, he's going to be able to dominate in that coverage. A lot of people talk about, Geno Smith and see the name with the Jets, but if you actually watched Geno play last year, he was unbelievable as a quarterback. Some of the throws he was making showcase all the talent that he that he had coming out and actually put on display. I know he broke out last season, but I think that he has an even better season this upcoming year, and it's going to be because of JSN and just the way that they're going to run this offense.
Jordan, I just want to say, props to you for being bold. Alfredo and I copped out. We're cowards. We took first, second year,
Speak for
third year
yourself.
players to breakouts. You took a 10-year veteran and said that he is going to break out the year after he broke out. So I love the confidence from you, and way to bring a bold take to the show.
Got it. So, what I'm seeing with you two beautiful gentlemen, I need to have some great takes to stand out here.
I mean, well, you're not wrong, though. Geno is now set up. It was the crazy breakout last year, but now he's set up for probably the most success in his career. And it becomes like a thing where if you like JSN, if you like Lockett, if you like Metcalf, if you like the running backs, if you think the offensive line is improved, if you think the team is better, if you saw Pete Carroll running around playing quarterback in practice and he was able to beat the secondary, I mean, you got to be excited about for what Geno Smith can do out there. And he's still being drafted as the quarterback 15. He's going in the 13th round. There's a reason why he's still being considered a breakout, is because he's not getting that respect from fantasy managers just yet, where we're saying he's got to be a top 8, top 10 guy that you have to pick. He's kind of still being treated as an afterthought, because I think people are worried that he's going to turn back into a pumpkin. It's almost like we're treating Geno Smith and Brock Purdy the same way, when it was not the same thing. And these are 2 very different players. I mean, can I ask you, Jordan, what makes you love Geno Smith so much? I know you kind of gave the case here for him, right?
Yeah.
But I can assume you don't have him as your quarterback 15. What makes you love him so much more than some of those other guys in that range?
He's my quarterback 10 personally. Well, because he has the ability to run. Like, he's not
Yeah.
just a statue in the pocket. He wants to throw from the pocket, but he has the ability to run. I think the passing touchdowns, I think he could throw for 35, which I believe he threw for 30 last season. And to end the season, he had such a bad stretch. But Laquan Treadwell had a full-time role in this offense to end the year. Like,
What
you
a
have to look
sentence.
back to those games and
Wow.
see that, like, they didn't have their full guys. Tyler Lockett was playing through so many injuries because he just always does. That's just the way he operates. And again, this is the best offense. I think one of the best overall teams in the NFL right now in the Seattle Seahawks. They added Bobby Wagner, Draymond Jones, Devin Witherspoon in the slot. Like, they're going to have the ball and they're going to score the ball. And for the first time, Pete Carroll allowed them to play a little bit up tempo last season, which led to all these breakout games. I think that Geno Smith is just going to be consistent and providing high ceiling weeks when they go up and match up with some of the top teams in the NFL.
I'm hesitant to say this because it's like so lazy, and I'm sure somebody in the YouTube comments are going to shred me for this. But when I watched Geno Smith play last year, I saw so much of Russ Wilson, like with the scrambling abilities and like
Yeah.
the perfectly placed deep balls downfield. Like we asked for years, like let Russ cook, and he was kept on a short leash. And then everything we wanted Pete Carroll to do with Russ Wilson, he allowed Geno Smith to do last year, and Geno excelled in the role. So I was blown away. I mean, we talked about it all last offseason. Nobody wanted Tyler Lockett. Nobody wanted DK Metcalf because of the concerns with Geno Smith. And then they both looked fantastic, and the offense looked almost better than it did in the previous years with Russ. So I'm completely with you. With this addition of JSN and Zach Charbonnet, we could see Geno Smith take even another step forward.
All right, Dave. So we talked about how Geno Smith got himself a nice rookie wide receiver who's been turning heads in camp, but it seems like you want to shift the focus over to another rookie receiver that you think could break out in a major way here in 2023.
Yeah, and I think if you look at draft capital as kind of how the NFL feels about talent, I mean, we saw Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison go back to back to back to back. So I think for a dynasty, through a dynasty lens, you can kind of make an argument for any of these guys to be, the dynasty rookie wide receiver one. But since we're talking about 2023 here, I mean, it's tough to put anybody ahead of Jordan Addison out of this rookie class. And, vacated targets, a lot of people scoff at that because targets are earned, blah, 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 blah. But what about vacated routes? Adam Thielen, like I was on Chris Harris's show a couple days ago, and he said the rotted out husk of Adam Thielen is what he referred to Adam Thielen in 2022 as. He ran 621 routes last year, the second most in the NFL. And Jordan Addison is going to slot right into that role. The Vikings had the third most pass attempts last year. They lost some key defenders, meaning that they're probably going to have to pass even more. They're playing in an NFC North that is full of Swiss cheese defenses. I mean, there's so much to like about this offense, and Jordan Addison is going to immediately be a full-time player playing in two wide receiver sets on an explosive offense. Justin Jefferson is going to maintain his role, obviously, but I think that's just going to make it even easier for Addison to get open, as Justin Jefferson is going to be drawing either primary or double coverage. Now, I like KJ Osborne, but I don't think that he is better than Jordan Addison. We've already seen some eye-popping plays from Addison in the preseason. Now, there are a few red flags, obviously. He's undersized. He's got a slight frame. He was a late declare. He's not super fast, but he is a crisp route runner, and he has this natural ability to get open. Kind of reminds me of a Deontay Johnson type of player. And, you can argue that the ceilings for some of these other guys, Quentin Johnson and JSN, might be higher, but I think we are looking at a rock solid, just bedrock foundation for Jordan Addison. I love him this year, and it's a cop out, saying that a rookie is going to break out, but I think that we see it from
Yeah.
Jordan Addison this year. He's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. Jordan Addison might have a career year in the NFL this year. Who knows?
Career
It's
highs
anyone's
across the
guess.
board by week one.
I think there's a lot of people that are really getting in on this Vikings offense this year, despite the loss of Dalvin Cook. But it's another year with Kevin O'Connell. It's now, I think what we all agree is a big upgrade from Adam Thielen. Sorry to hurt your feelings there, Jordan. From Adam Thielen to Jordan Addison here, and then another full season with T.J. Hawkinson. So I think it's easy to be optimistic about the Vikings here. We might even talk about another Viking later on here in the show. Who knows? I'm going to finish this off here with another breakout. And I'm talking about Drake London. I am just absolutely in love with these second-year wide receivers. It is just so easy to pick them when their name pops up in the queue for my drafts. And right now, I've got Drake London right behind Christian Watson as the wide receiver 22 in my ranks. Football Guys has him as the wide receiver 30, and currently for his average draft position, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 25. So kind of somewhere in between. He's being drafted around that round 5, round 6 turn. I like to reference, what I did recently in a home league draft. I got him in the 6th round. And I honestly do believe he would have fallen just a bit more because I think that home leagues react to these things a little bit different. And if you're kind of like, what is a home league? It's just those are the leagues you draft with your friends at home, not, these industry leagues or expert leagues or underdog, best ball leagues, anything like that. I think that what we've seen, right, is that Arthur Smith, there's kind of a formula, and maybe I'm trying to connect too many of the dots here, but we've seen this formula before with AJ Brown in that Arthur Smith offense. And Jordan, to go back to something you talked about earlier with the Falcons, really bringing over that Titans thumbprint, blueprint, whatever we want to call it. You go back and look at AJ Brown in 2019 as a rookie. He was the wide receiver 31 in points per game. And we really didn't see him break out all that much. And he still had more touchdowns than Drake London. Then all of a sudden, the touchdowns exploded to double-digit touchdowns, few more targets per game. And AJ Brown was the wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game. Now, I'm not going to be as bold here and say Drake London's going to jump from wide receiver 48 like he was last year and be a top 12 guy for sure, but he has all the makings of that. He only caught 4 touchdowns last year, and I think you have to assume there's going to be some positive regression for the Falcons in the touchdown department. And last year is a small sample size, but everything did get better with Desmond Ridder once he took over on the field. It's not so much about Desmond Ridder being phenomenal. It was just so much about how bad Marcus Mariota was. And we saw Desmond Ridder was getting out 29 pass attempts per game. That's 6 more pass attempts per game than Mariota was when he was starting. That's 100 plus more pass attempts on the season. And if you're
Still
worried
about lowest in the league, just
actually, no, sir, that would have been like 5th or 6th lowest. But that's okay. But that's still talking about a rookie quarterback who really did not have the whole playbook under. So now we're talking about a guy. Let's say that number goes to 31, 32 times per game, which is not crazy to assume they might throw 2 or 3 more times per game. This team, all of a sudden, the offense looks very different. And I know we want to say, oh, but Desmond Ridder can't support Bijan and Pitts and London. First of all, Desmond Ridder doesn't have to support Bijan. That man supports himself, okay? He is a single parent. He don't need nobody, all right? But Desmond Ridder and the passing attack for the Falcons absolutely can support Kyle Pitts and Drake London, okay? If we're talking about the difference that I mentioned there, it was 6 attempts per game, Kyle Pitts, 6.3 targets per game over his career. So we're literally talking about the difference from Mariota to Ridder being the number of targets that Pitts has averaged throughout his career. And let's continue to talk about a little bit of what they do in terms of strategy. We're talking about using 2 tight ends. They brought over Geno Smith. This is something that I think they're going to be using Geno Smith in a little bit more of a blocking role and letting Kyle Pitts get the opportunity to, I don't want to say go one-on-one with linebackers because that's probably not going to happen when he's going up against these defenses. But I do think that Kyle Pitts and Drake London, it's going to be very similar to what we see in Miami. 2 guys getting a lot of the targets in this passing offense. And Drake London, okay, last season, when he had those 4 games with Desmond Ridder, he was averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game. Didn't score a single touchdown. That's more points per game than Terry McLaurin, who was the wide receiver 14, more points per game than Brandon Ayuk, who was the wide receiver 15, more points than DK Metcalf, who was the wide receiver 16. I'm saying all this just to put it out there. The idea of Drake London breaking out into being a top 12 wide receiver is maybe not as far-fetched as we think. Dave, I know you feel some sort of way about Kyle Pitts. On the other side of that coin, are you comfortable with Drake London going into the season?
I am. And, get ready to throw your tomatoes at me. I think that Bijan Robinson's impact is going to be felt much more on the overall team than it's going to be. Bijan Robinson absolutely has RB1, range of outcomes. He could be the guy. But I think that Tyler Algier isn't going to completely disappear. He's going to be a frustrating thorn in the side, probably still getting like 8 to 12 touches per game. But I think what Bijan Robinson does is he's going to force defenses to play a little bit more honest. They're going to have to play closer to the line. They're not going to be able to drop back in coverage, which is going to open up opportunities for Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So, we've already talked about the Falcons offense a little bit, but I think one of the best, ball questions out there is Arthur Smith a good coach? And people who are just so locked into fantasy, they hate Arthur Smith because of the utilization, but he was a very good coach last year. And you alluded to that earlier, Alfredo. So I think that Bijan Robinson is probably a little bit riskier than we give him credit for, being ranked as RB3. I think top 12 is, pretty safe, but the upside could be capped a little bit because I think what Bijan Robinson is going to do is open up more opportunities in the passing game for Drake London and for Kyle Pitts. So I do like both of these guys. Are they both going to hit? Probably not. I mean, it would be a lot for Desmond Ridder to support two high-end, fantasy producers. But I think that betting on one of them, if you're doing multiple drafts, throw some darts at Drake London, throw some darts at Kyle Pitts. Both of these guys have a path to breaking out this year.
All right. Well, since you brought it up, Dave, I'm going to put Jordan on the spot here. You have to pick one, and one of us is going to love you forever. So you have to pick between Kyle Pitts or Drake London. Choose between your parents right now, Jordan. Who do you love more, me or Dave?
I I am taking Drake London because I love the tight ends that are in Pitt's range. One of them we're going to be talking about later. Darren Waller is the other one that I think is in a phenomenal spot. So Kyle Pitts has the tight end stuff or the tight end position, so it's easier for him to be better than Drake London because the receivers are there's a lot of them. But Drake London, to me, I think is the number one target in this offense. And I know a lot of people talk about, they're scared of how much volume he's going to get. If Desmond Ridder's throwing the ball 30 to 32 times a game, Kyle Pitts and Drake London should combine for 15 to 18 targets. It's a low volume offense that's concentrated on both of them being great. It's not Mac Hollins. It's not Geno Smith. It's going to be those guys getting targets.
Now, I'd say even more than that because these guys both are going to be like 28 to 30% target share guys. So if they're throwing 30 times, you can project even more to go their way. Yeah, I'm not concerned at all about. I don't even think I could name another pass catcher on the team besides Mac Hollins. I don't even know who else is in Atlanta. This is going to be the Kyle Pitts and Drake London show through the air.
You guys mentioned the target shares. I really just want to put into perspective how good Drake London's rookie season was. His 29.3% target share was the most by a rookie since 2014, Odell Beckham Jr. That guy was pretty good. And you take a look at him compared to all the other rookie wide receivers drafted since 2011. He was third in targets per route run, second in target share per game, like I mentioned, at fifth in yards per team pass attempt. The other four guys mentioned there, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, OBJ, AJ Brown. AJ Brown, the same guy who Arthur Smith has the experience with. So I'm leaning towards a Drake London breakout here this year. Jordan, anything else that you want to add here on the Drake London Pitts debate?
Yeah, just be sure to take one of these guys in your fantasy leagues. I think both of them are values at their ADP because nobody likes their passing offense.
There it is. You're going to get a great value there with one of those Atlanta Falcons players. And well, Jordan, you actually have a breakout candidate that we have not talked about at all in this preseason on any episode, no matter what the topic is. And this guy could absolutely be a league winner. You kind of teased it earlier, and it's a premium position at the tight end position. We're going to continue with three more players over on the audio version of this episode. And that's totally exclusive content for our audio listeners only. If you want to get the full episode, just click on the link in the description here down below. This has been our breakout players with special guest Jordan Vanek. Thanks for watching.